Hello everyone and welcome to this week's video tutorial. It will be the third board in chapter 4 of the Sandwich Horse Defense Treatise by Grandmaster Ronghua. In the fourth chapter, the first and second boards have been introduced, but in this board, Red would choose to attack from the center with p5 plus 1, and it would be the most complex variation that was presented in the book, whereby there were 5 major variations that were discussed. And without further ado, we shall begin. And just a reminder, as in all my previous videos, I've deliberately chosen to put black at the bottom of the board so that the interested player interested in the Sandwich Horse defense can view it from the eyes of black. So without further ado, let's begin. Central cannon, Pell corner cannon, Sandwich Horse defense. Again, as in the previous two boards, p3 plus 1 was played by red, and black countered accordingly. The edge horse, the right elephant variation, which has been discussed in chapter 3 and 4, and red will counter with the 5-6 cannons. Black could immediately play r9 plus 1 to develop his left chariot as a ranked chariot, and red would develop both chariots as foul chariots. Black could protect the cannon, and a prophylactic move by red to protect the cannon, the cross palace chariot, and this would be the position of discussion for this board in chapter 4. As can be seen, red would choose to advance his central pawn, and it will be in accordance with the central cannon so that red could attack the central foul. So at this point there were 5 variations that were discussed. These 5 variations were r4 plus 3, r4 plus 4, r4 plus 5, c2 plus 1, and a4 plus 5. So to begin with, the first major variation was r4 plus 3, where red would choose to patrol and protect and solidify his riverbank rank. This would also allow black to trade pawns later on and to develop his left horse. So at this point in the book, r2 plus 3 was given. This was a tightly knit move by red. So by playing r2 plus 3, red would be prepared to push his central pawn forward, and if need be, play h3 plus 5, where the horse will not be afraid of any attacks by the black chariot, as it will be protected by the red chariot. So at this point in time, r2 plus 3 was the recommended move by the Grandmaster. Would r2 plus 8 be a good choice, where black would apply pressure and threaten the black horse over here? So this was the line that was given in the book. After r2 plus 8, black would proceed as planned to trade pawns. And although red would acquire a cross river pawn, black will have the better end of the bargain, because for the price of 1 pawn, black would be compensated with a very versatile formation, where the black cannon, the chariot, the horse would be very versatile and be ready to attack red's right flank in return. So after comparing both sides and analyzing the position, black will be considered to be better in this situation. So r2 plus 8 will be too aggressive, and r2 plus 3 will be the recommended move. And how should black counter? The move that was advised by the Grandmaster was c2 plus 1. There were another two sub-variations, p3 plus 1 and a4 plus 5. So we shall go through the sub-variations one by one. For p3 plus 1, the main idea was to allow black to play h3 plus 2 to apply pressure to the red chariot, and that will result in a poorly developed chariot. So this was the line given. At this point in time, r2 equals to 3 would not be ideal if black should not try to trade cannons. So before we continue into the sub-variation, and black's chariot and horse would now be pinned, so red would have the obvious advantage. So back to the sub-variation earlier. If red tried to trade cannons, it would have been better for black not to accept. Instead, what would happen if black chose to trade cannons? Red will attack from the central file. And red would have the obvious advantage because both chariots are ready to go, and red would have a central pawn in position, and the horse would most probably be developed h5 plus 3, where it will be a very threatening piece, as it will only require 2 more moves to get to the elbow horse position. So red will have the obvious advantage. So at this point in time, a4 plus 5 was suggested, and although red would still have the advantage, it might have been better than the other variation. So p3 plus 1 was not good for black. The other sub-variation that was discussed was black playing a4 plus 5 immediately to solidify his central file. So red could continue to play h9 minus 7. The efficiency of the red chariot can now be appreciated, as red will be prepared to play h7 plus 6 to threaten the black chariot, which would not have any good positions or intersections to occupy. So although red's chariot was forced back into the bot corner, red will be prepared to retaliate with h7 plus 6. Black cannot play c6 equals to 8. Red cannot play c6 equals to 8, or black will retaliate with h2 plus 3, with r2 plus 3, and be better. And at this point, red will still have the advantage, as can be seen, and black's left flank will still be a headache to consider. So if h6 plus 8 was played, r2 equals to 3, and black would have the easier time of 2. So c6 equals to 8, or traversing the cannon to the 8th file would not be ideal at this point. So the Grandmaster recommended c2 plus 1. But why? What were the motives, or what were the strategies or tactical implications of this move? Okay. At this point in time, red would continue to play c6 plus 1, and also be prepared to play c5 equals to 6 and readjust his formation to attack. It would not be feasible for red to play h9 minus 7 at this point, even though red was prepared to attack with h7 plus 6 on the next move. So if h9 plus minus 7 were played, black would counter in this manner, and black would now have seized the initiative. So red would be in a dilemma, because if it moved, black would be threatening with a smarted cannon checkmate. So h9 minus 7 would be too early. And what about p5 plus 1? And at this point in time, black would be better off after pinning the red horse and chariot. And as the pawn had not moved, the red horse will have trouble developing over here, and the red chariot will also be greatly limited in its efficiency. Hence, for red, c6 plus 1 was the advocated move, and black would now threaten the central pawn immediately. So one might wonder, would it be possible for black to offer a trade of pawns as in the earlier other sub-variations? The answer would be no. Red would threaten to checkmate, and red would lose momentum through this chariot trade-off. And at this point in time, although the red horse was forced back to the bottom rank, red would have the advantage of the extra pawn, and black's left flank was still undeveloped and would need more some moves for black to ease or add some space for development of the pieces on the left flank. So r4 plus 1 was advocated, and black would prepare to attack from the central file with these very threatening tandem cannons. Check. And at this point in time, it would be an even situation. Black would still have a playable game, and the rest of the match would going to mid-game, it would be a rather even situation that black can be satisfied with. One thing to note, at this point in time, black should not capture the offending central cannon, because if he did, red would have a slight advantage and would allow his horse to be developed from the center, where there will be more options present for red to attack later in the mid game. Hence, in variation 1, black can be satisfied. What about variation 2? So this, after just a little bit, just to jog your memory, after p5 plus 1, the first variation was r4 plus 3. The second variation would be r4 plus 4, where black would be aggressive and threaten the red central pawn immediately. So what should red do? r2 plus 8. Black would sacrifice his horse for 2 red pawns and hopefully gain the initiative in the process. At this point in time, if black chose to play c2 plus 4, black could immediately retreat his horse. This is one of the ways of developing the edge horse. The horse would be threatening to capture the cannon, and if it moved, the red horse would have the option of playing h7 plus 6. So p7 plus 1 would not be an ideal move at this point, because black would simply retreat after gaining material to fortify his defenses, and black would still have a hard time trying to attack. And eventually, the loss of a major piece, the black horse, would become pronounced. The effects of this loss would become pronounced, and red would slowly inch his way to a greater advantage. Hence, r7 plus 1 was advocated, and black would not be able to control the situation. Red would have both the material advantage and the positional advantage. Hence, after p5 plus 1, advancing the chariot to the cross riverbank rank is not advocated. In the third variation, black could be even more aggressive and choose to advance his chariot to red's pawn rank. So there are quite some variations given here, and we shall go through them one by one. After advancing the chariot, red would continue to attack the black horse. p7 plus 1, and at this point the Grandmaster advised p5 plus 1, and it would be a mistake if red chose to accept the trade or the sacrifice, because black would be able to achieve his original goals, and the pawn would have been pushed for no apparent reason. The red horse would not dare to move, or the elephant would be captured, and that would also still be to red's advantage. And the issue of red's pesky pawn would now be salvaged, and black would be in a better position. Hence, it would have been better for red to push his central pawn forward instead of accepting the pawn exchange. And black should continue to play p7 plus 1. Faced with two pawns, it would have been better for black to capture the pawn on his 6th file instead of the central pawn, because if black did capture the central pawn, red could attack, check, and red would have a significant advantage. So black would have to move his advisor, and red could capture either the black chariot and still threaten the horse, or the cannon, or generally speaking, red would have the significant advantage, as black would have lost a horse and some positioning in the process. So p7 plus 1 would be the correct or sound move according to the Grandmaster, and black should r2 equals to 3 would be a crucial move for red to play at this point. Red cannot be greedy and push his central pawn forward, because after red captured it, red would have lost some momentum in his attack and also some tempo from pushing his pawn. So black's prospects would seem to be very good at this point in time. So r2 equals to 3 to threaten the black horse would be ideal, and black could choose to play h7 plus 8. Would it be a good idea to trade material with p7 plus 1? The answer would be a resounding no, because red would have the obvious advantage, and if the black pawn captured the red horse, red could play cc close to 3 and be threatening to checkmate with a smothered cannon checkmate if black's elephants were not linked. Also, the red pawn would now have crossed the river, and it would take only one more move to threaten the black cannon. Hence, at this point in time, it will be more important for black to move his horse away. And at this point in time we can see that red's left chariot will now still be pinning the black chariot and cannon, and red would have more space and better positioning of the pieces, so red will still have the significant advantage. Just to jog your memory, this variation was the R4 plus 5 variation. The first variation was R4 plus 3, the second was R4 plus 4, and we just completed R4 plus 5. In the fourth variation, which happens to be the second last variation, black would choose to play C2 plus 1. This would allow black to prepare to charge his pawn forward and play C2 equals to 3 to attack for the elephant on the bottom rank for the smothered cannon checkmate. So what should red do? Red should play h3 plus 4. As black had played c2 plus 1, red will now target this and play h3 plus 4 to attack the central pawn, and that would not, in the result would be the resulting will not be good, because there will be a lack of space for red to move. Hence h3 plus 4 was a proactive move to prevent it. So a4 plus 5, h4 plus 5. After trading horses, red would gain a central cannon and be prepared to link his elephants together, and black would choose to play c6 plus 5 at this point. If it would be important for black to make this move, it will be very, very important. Sorry, c6 plus 5 to trade cannons, and at this point using the cannon to capture black's cannon would be the correct move. It would be a mistake to play e7 plus 9, because check, and black would gain material in the process. So after this trade-off, black would actually have an extra piece. Hence it would be critical for red to capture the black cannon with c9 equals to c9 minus 4, and black would continue to capture the cannon. Red would capture the cannon for a trade, and at this point in time red would enjoy a slight advantage with the pawns, but the situation on the board would now become very drawish. Hence black's c2 plus 1 variation would result in a very drawish position if both colors chose to trade much material. So in the last variation, after red played p5 plus 1, black could choose to play a4 plus 5, and this was the line that was given by the Grandmaster. Red will still attack the black horse, and black would show his determination to sacrifice material with this move. Playing a4 plus 5 was to make way for black to continue with this very interesting move. So one might wonder, would c2 plus 1 or c2 minus 1 be viable? For example, but with c2 minus 1, black will be prepared to gain material by capturing the red cannon and then capturing the red chariot. So what would red do? Red will still play r2 equals to 3, and black could lose material instead, because now there were two chariots and red would be bound to lose one of them, and red would still threaten to capture the black horse. So it would not be advisable for black to retreat his cannon at this point. So c2 plus 3 was what was the move that was suggested by the Grandmaster. b9 plus 1, trade of chariots, e3 plus 1. And at this point in time, there were three sub-variations that were discussed for black. The first of one would be c7 plus 1, the second one would be c7 minus 1, and the third option would be c7 equals to 1. So if c7 plus 1 were played, red would suddenly enjoy a huge advantage. If the black pawn captured the red's pawn, red would immediately play r5 plus 5 for the discovered check, and black would lose his chariot. So this is why red would have a significant advantage in this situation. So in the second sub-variation, black would choose to retreat his cannon instead. So after retreating his cannon, black would still apply pressure on red would still apply pressure on black's left flank, and red would still have the advantage. In the last sub-variation, it was recommended that instead of advancing or retreating the black cannon to prevent capture by the elephant, it was suggested that c7 equals to 1 would be the sound move to make in this situation. So if red would continue to attack the black horse, black would be prepared to sacrifice material to gain a central cannon. Would it have been better for red to advance his central pawn instead of capturing the horse? The answer would be no. And black would have used his horse to trade for 3 extra black pawns that were ready to attack and cross the river. So black would have a very playable game in this situation. Hence, r3 minus 1 to accept the sacrifice is advocated, and black would be compensated with a central cannon, and now black will now threaten the red cannon, and to protect his cannon, red chose to move his king out to the red file, and black would deliver a check. The order of moves would be very important in this situation. Black must play c5 equals to 6 before playing p7 plus 1. If p7 plus 1 were played at this point in time, red would immediately capture black's central pawn, and any chance of a black retaliation would be smothered. Hence, the correct move would be to deliver a check to force the king back into the palace before advancing the black pawn. And at this point in time, we can see that black will have the advantage, as although he had sacrificed the horse, the extra pawns and very open position would mean that black will be able to develop his other pieces later on in the game to gain advantage. So this wraps up the last and final very complex variation in chapter 4. A short summary: once p5 plus 1 was played, r4 plus 3 would result in a even situation. r4 plus 4 would be to red's favor. r4 plus 5 to advance the black chariot to the pawn rank would be still to red's advantage. The second last variation, c2 plus 1, would also be to red's advantage, although the advantage would not be so significant. but the final variation, a4 plus 5, will be the advocated move for the sandwich house defense, and it will result in a very playable game for black going to the mid game. I hope you have enjoyed today's video, which is a little bit complex and a little bit long. Please go through the various variations a few times before you are able to completely understand the position and the pieces. So I thank you again for your patience, and I hope you have been following the tutorials I've been doing the past few months. So if you like my YouTube channel, please subscribe, and I thank you again for your for your viewership, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you and have a nice day.